Audio testing, 1, 2, 3. Lights on, camera rolling, and action.
Welcome to the Scaling Creator Podcast, the one-stop shop that explores problems, solutions, and stories for business-minded creators. I'm Soren Dickens.
And I'm Erickson Dickens.
We'll be talking about everything from self-discovery, storytelling, leadership, marketing, sales, operations, and finance.
If you like a healthy dose of education mixed with a generous dash of insightful entertainment, prepare for your ears to be pleasured.
Oh, yeah. Make sure to check us out at scalingcreator.com and also join our free Discord community.
Scaling Creator launching in 3, 2, 1.
The following content is not intended for all listeners, but we strongly encourage all listeners to listen regardless. Hey, welcome back to the Scaling Creator Podcast. I'm Soren Dickens. I'm here about to have a remote guest on. His name is Dan Fantasia. Dan Fantasia is the founder and CEO of Treeline Inc. Treeline Inc. is a really cool company. They've brought a lot of value to us so far, and what they do is they recruit top-end sales talent and they place them within organizations. So if you're a business owner and you're looking to bring on a sales force or a single salesperson, look at Treeline Inc. And we look forward to this episode with Dan. Dan, I appreciate you hopping on, and I look forward to diving into hearing your perspective on hiring a single salesperson and also scaling a sales team, because it's definitely something that we've struggled with in the media production world. And I know a lot of other creators that go from a solo creator to building a team often struggle with. And I know when we were talking a little bit earlier, you mentioned that often it's a founder-led sales team. And we know that feeling. And I think a lot of other creators can relate to that. So Dan Fantasia is the CEO and founder of Treeline Inc. And Dan, can you tell us a little bit about what Treeline does, how you got into the sales industry, and tell us a little bit about your background.
So Treeline is, we're a search firm. We specialize specifically and solely in the recruitment of sales professionals for organizations that are looking to scale and grow. We've been around for 23 years. We started in 2001, just before September 11th. And we've had a tremendous amount of success. We've been an Inc. 5000 fastest growing company. We've been a best place to work multiple times in Boston and as well as across the United States. And we've built this incredible network of hard-to-find talent that most companies just don't have access to. And so when they come to us, they really come to us to build a plan, to gather some insight on the market and figure out a strategy as to how they can hire, onboard, and sustain a quality or A-player sales force. You had asked me how I got into the business. I fell into the business in 1997, actually. I had no idea what sales recruiting was, but I jumped in with both feet. And at the beginning, I wasn't very good at it. Always been very genuine, very down to earth, but couldn't take leadership because I was early in my own career and I just didn't understand the different avenues of each person's career. But little by little, I found great success. And then I started Treeline in 2001, and we've changed the lives of over 3,500 people since our inception, and have a goal to change the lives of 6,000 by the year 2030.
That's awesome. That's really cool. So before you got into sales recruiting, were you in sales?
I was a general manager, salesperson of a very small firm, but it wasn't working for me. We were supposed to scale the company and build different offices. It never happened. So I started looking for new opportunities. And I was thinking about software sales at the time, but the recruiting firm that I went to said, hold on a second, what about this? And I was like, what? What is this? What is recruiting? I mean, my friends didn't know what it was. My family didn't know what it was. Actually, a lot of people today don't still understand how it all works, but it happened to be a really good fit for me. And it's been great ever since.
That's awesome. It's so important to be able to find someone who can find you the right talent. We've struggled with that in our business. And I'm curious, how'd you start your process? Like, where did you start when you're in a position where I'm going to start recruiting salespeople for other organizations? Did you go get the contracts first, or did you start recruiting first? What was the process there?
That's a good question. It was tough. I mean, it was really, really difficult. Remember, so when I left as the top producer, the number one managing partner, I had a tremendous amount of success. But I left because the culture broke down, not because I didn't love the people. The culture of the model just started to break down. So I wanted to build something that was really for the team, right? As I mentioned, we've been a best place to work so many times. It's been wonderful. It's really a nice success trait. But when I started, I had to non-compete. So I had to go into totally different industries. I started in the pharmaceutical and biotech market. And if you've ever called on pharma and biotech firms, there's a big process to getting your foot in the door. And when the company name is Treeline and you're one person, it's a real battle. And don't forget, we started in March of 2001. 6 months later was September 11th. So it was a pretty rocky road to get started. But basically, it was two things. One, it was looking to bring on net new clients that were willing to give us a chance. And then two, it was about finding, great candidates that could and would be a good fit for our clients so they could scale and grow their company. And so at the time, I was trying to bring on new clients and I was interviewing candidates. And many times I was talking to candidates saying, you know what, I will have a fit for you one day, but I just don't have it right now. And then, as the brand grew and as we continued to help change so many lives and we always did it for the right reason with a 97% success rate, people found new opportunities. They were happy. The companies were happy. They continued to refer us. They grew in their career. They started to hire from us. And after 23 years, we're one of the oldest sales search firms in the nation. We're one of the largest and most successful. And it's all been around, our ability to deliver top talent.
When Treeline's looking for top talent, how do you source that at this point in your guys' business compared to where you started in 2001? Can you tell me a little bit about where you were in 2001 and how things are a little different now?
So different.
Yeah.
So different, Soren. Yeah, I mean, the first step has always been, first and foremost, is to consult and understand the client's needs, their present business model, their sales model, why they're such a great place to work, and the personality characteristics and attributes of their sales reps, especially their top sales reps. Once we understand that, then we develop a go-to-market strategy where we source and search and recruit for individuals that meet those requirements. As we bring that talent to our clients, while they think they know exactly what they're looking for in the job market, they usually don't know until they have the data that we serve up to them. Data being really strong salespeople that could be a good fit. That data could include all the people you want to talk to have non-competes, or all the individuals we're talking to that meet your requirements, cost $20,000 more in base salary and $100,000 more in on-target earnings, right? So they gain a lot of data. And at that point, they need, based on that data, now they can make calculated decisions on how to move the search forward. Do they hire, or do they decide to increase budget and spend more on the individuals that they look to target, or do they keep the budget the same and reduce the level of experience, or they reduce the requirement, or maybe they don't have to have exact industry expertise or domain expertise? And so we help companies figure that out so they can hire the right person, they can sustain those people, and they fit the culture to ultimately help them grow and compete in a really competitive marketplace.
Yeah, it sounds like a really thorough process. And would you say that when you guys are talking to clients, you mentioned that they may not really even know what they're looking for when they're doing their job search? So you guys go in and find the attributes of the top talent and you mirror that out into the market to find people who would assimilate into that culture and environment? Or can you explain that a little bit more?
I mean, we've been doing this for so long that we know we've worked in your industry before. And so when we're talking to you about what your model looks like, we're assessing how realistic it is based on the experiences we've had in the past. And then we'll share that information with you, right? And the reason why we share that information is because if we understand the search and it's realistic, then we can deliver. And if we don't believe we can deliver, we won't take on the project or the opportunity. And by the way, when I say deliver, we've had matter of fact, most of our searches are incredibly difficult. They are looking for candidates they think we could never find, but we do. And we deliver the first candidate. We'll introduce them to the first candidate that meets their requirement in the first 3 days. We know how important it is to hire a salesperson. We have the urgency, we have the network, we have the ability to deliver that kind of result, but only if the requirement is realistic. So for example, if you're looking for an A player from a competitor, but we know you're lowballing on offer or on compensation, there are one or two choices. One is if we go to market, we're just going to waste a whole bunch of time. We're going to reach out to 500 people and they're going to have 0 conversion rate, which means that we're not going to be able to deliver anyone. And they're all going to tell us that comp is off. And so if you want to do that kind of search, I just don't think we're going to be able to deliver on that. And then most of the time, believe it or not, companies know that, right? So they say, okay, then we found the same thing in the past. Wonderful. So what is the solution? Do we reduce the requirement? Do we increase comp? I mean, we can deliver whatever you want, but it's all based on the direction and information you give us. And if the data is not accurate or expectations are inaccurately set on what the search looks like, then nobody can help you. So we're really built around transparency and honesty, and we're just going to share our opinion on what we believe the success rate is and what it's going to be.
Gotcha. For some of the smaller organizations that would be listening, can you tell me about the importance of building a sales team when the founder is currently in the sales role? I think a lot of people who are listening can relate to this, where they are the leader of the company, but they're also in the sales role. Maybe they have appointment setters and people who help them in the process of developing a sales pipeline. But in terms of closing deals and building new relationships, can you tell us from your perspective what that's like working with someone who was a founder and also their main salesperson?
Yeah, I wrote a blog on our website called Founder-Led Sales. And we've talked to many companies. We consult for free. Right? We will work with every organization and we'll help them figure out, a strategy toward their recruitment needs, or at least their sales recruitment needs. That doesn't mean they have to buy from us. That doesn't mean they have to work with us. But at least we can give them and share advice on what they might want to consider to be a little bit more successful. So for many companies, many smaller companies, the founders tend to be the top sales representatives. And when the founder is the top sales representative, the challenge becomes many times the founder, they say, okay, I want to hire a salesperson and I want them to do exactly what I do and I want them to sit in the seat. And because they know sales, they're going to help me double the revenue. And they tend to fail. And the reason why they fail is because there's no systematic approach to their current sales process. And so as a result, as a founder, they have the network, they have the brand, they have the relationship. So most of their sales are sold differently. They sell through relationship or networking or what have you. So they always say, well, I'm the top rep. That's wonderful. But if you weren't the founder and you had to bring a sale from prospect to close, what would that look like? How many cold calls would that take? How many emails would that take? How many in-mails would that take? What would the social blueprint look like for you to be successful? And then once you understand that social blueprint and that outreach, what does the conversion rate look like? How many people are you talking to? And of those people you're talking to, how many are showing interest in doing a demo? How many of them end up purchasing? What tends to happen is a founder says, I'm the best salesperson because I know the technology the best and I'm the founder and whatever comes in, I close. But does the founder spend all day long prospecting to understand what the model looks like? Not typically. And that's where the confusion is. You can't just hire a salesperson and say, go, you've been a top sales rep in the past. I expect you to be a top salesperson again here. They don't understand the challenges yet. We don't even understand what the model looks like. We don't understand what the KPI and activity metrics are required to be successful in the role. And so many times, what's most important is finding a person that has a playbook that can sit down in the organization, understand what your needs are, and then build out through failure what it looks like to find a successful sale. And then once they understand how to find a successful sale, then they can duplicate that effort. And once they understand how to duplicate that effort and get more sales, then they can hire another person, train them on the same metrics and a value proposition and, look to double revenue. But there is a process there, and it does take time. It does take coaching. It does take accountability. And it's not just about hiring someone you think could do a great job because you'll just be disappointed. They'll fail as well.
I can totally relate to that, actually. In the early days, we tried to hire a salesperson, and our process, the way I guess I could explain it is our process was we just figured out how to get the deal done. As a founder, you'll figure out how to get the deal done. And then it wasn't until failing like 2 or 3 times bringing on a salesperson that we realized there isn't like a very systematic approach that we were taking to do it. So we've had to build those systems and processes that we're now following as founders, because my brother and I are the founders of our company, and we had to build processes that we would then follow because we realized we can't just pass it off to someone who doesn't have the product service knowledge or the passion or the network like you're talking about. So how do you, when you work with a company that doesn't have those processes, do you guys come in and help them build those processes prior to then helping them scale a team, or are those not like the best fitting clients for you guys?
No, we can, but we typically don't. What we do is we want to understand how you're selling now. right? We want to understand the audience you sell to. We want to understand your average sales size, your sales cycle. We want to understand some of the key sales traits to your selling environment. And then what we'll do is we'll go to market and we'll find individuals that are selling to the same audience. They may be selling a competitive service or a similar service, depending on compensation and if you're competitive enough. We'll find someone, and depending, a lot of times companies get confused. They think, do we need to hire a VP of sales right now? Do we need to hire a sales manager? Do we need to hire an individual contributor? In your instance, what I would have recommended, I'd want to learn more, but I would just try to hire an individual contributor that has done this before. So if they were, it depends on the comp structure you have available, but is it a BDR? Maybe it's a person that's 2 to 3 years or 1 to 3 years of a business development representative and has a model and has done this before. So they can come in and they say, all right, what I've learned, Soren, is I've made, on a daily basis, I make 100 calls, I send 200 connects, and I send 200 emails. And I use a product called Apollo, or I use, whatever. They already have their playbook. I use Outreach, or I use whatever they're using. I use HubSpot, whatever it is. Understand the tools they use, how they do their outreach, how they find leads. And then with that, build that into your model. So let them fail, give them some time. Set, if you could, I would recommend doing a 30, 60, 90-day plan before they get started so everyone's on the same page. You hold them accountable to the metrics that they're telling you that is required to be successful. Sit them in, have them, give them the, and they can help you with the script, but give them an idea of the products and services you're selling. Teach them on the technology and why someone would want to buy and what the challenges have been. And then give them a talk track and an email cadence so they can start reaching out. And as they start to reach out and they start looking at your target audience, now you'll see what's happening. In the first week, you'll realize, all right, how many emails have been sent? How many calls have been set? How many calls have gone out? What is your success rate? None. Okay, maybe we have to increase the calls, or maybe we increase the emails, or what's been effective? Oh, email is working like wonderfully, and this is the cadence that works. This is the drip campaign that works. Great, let's do more of those. So you're trying to figure all of that out until you find a successful solution, something that works. And they're giving this playbook, they're trying all these things, and after the first month, they've hit their, the beginning of their 30, 60, 90-day plan. You're holding them accountable. They're holding themselves accountable. They're having small wins and some success, and you're starting to build a track record of success and understand how your sales model works. After the first or second or third month, you're going to start closing business. You're going to start learning from that. You're going to start seeing what cadences work most effectively, what numbers and activity needs to be driven to find that success. And then once that happens, now this person's on their way. So now you keep holding them accountable to those metrics. You keep watching those metrics improve. The success rate goes up. The close ratio gets better. And then you really start understanding the basics and the foundation of what your sales organization is going to look like. And then you keep improving on that. Once you get there, then you can scale and hire your next person. You can move people into team lead roles and management roles and really scale to be a larger organization.
So in the case of a company, say we'll run a hypothetical situation here for the audience. If you're a founder-led sales organization and you're a video production company and you're selling your video production services, the average cart price is $15,000, and you're the founder and you're also involved in some of the operations, what would you say the founder should do to find more scale in the business in that situation?
If the founder is, again, the lead salesperson, and they're spending all of their time in the business, and in the business means they're selling and closing, so they never have any time to focus on the business. If they can't step out and focus on the business, it creates a logjam. They'll never be able to scale. And so one of the ways that they can scale is with people. And in this instance, it would be with a sales representative. I would recommend finding people that understand or have some knowledge. If it's not the direct industry or the space, then a similar industry, right? It could be video, maybe it's sound. It could be a whole bunch of different things, but we'll tie in different industries. We might even look at who's your biggest competitor, and then let's look at some of their sales representatives. If we can, we'll try to recruit some of them, at least talk to them and get a better understanding of the market and what a person like that might cost. We also may look at your competition and see, all right, if we can't afford the competition, where does the competition recruit their people from? Where are they finding their talent from? So we'll look and we'll figure out where did these people used to work before they went to your competition, and then we'll go after those same industries and we'll find talented sales representatives that could do the job. The idea is we're putting a ton of human capital into every one of these searches to find these people to serve up to you so that you can assess, meet, and talk to these individuals that you've never talked to before. This should give you an understanding or a better understanding of what kind of talent's out there, what it costs, and what you might want to consider as your next sales hire.
That's really good to know. I would say that in the creator space, the agency space, smaller agencies, teams of 2 to 10 or 10 to 20, oftentimes the founder gets stuck in that position. And the whole Scaling Creator podcast concept is built around how we went from being solo videographers to building an agency, then scaling from there. But we still find ourselves in the sales role sometimes and as a representative of the organization. So in the case of the founder being the lead salesperson, if they don't have those processes already built, how do you maintain the culture when you hire a salesperson who might have even more experience than the founder? I'm curious, if you bring someone in your organization that has their own processes, and if it's working, do you just run with those new processes and let them become the, forerunner in the sales department? Or as a founder, should you still maintain some control over the organization in that regard?
Hold them accountable, let them run. Because what happens is, again, as a founder, you still become the logjam. You can't work on the business because you're so busy in the business, right? So let's say that you were to hire your first sales representative and they were crushing it. So they're building systems, they're building process, they're using Salesforce, they're using some kind of CRM system, they're collecting the data, they're using the data for the organization, so that data is saved for you. You can see what's happening. You can replace with another sales rep and use that same exact data, right? But the idea is, if they are the experts in the industry, or if they're the experts in the field and they're showing success, let them be successful. Let them grow. To sustain them, the ultimate way to sustain them is to set accurate expectations. If you give them a quota of revenue that you think they should attain in their first year, then make sure that there's a shot at hitting that. And whatever the W-2 is, base salary and on-target earnings or variable compensation, if they hit that number, they should hit a certain compensation range. And if those expectations are set right, the salesperson will stay. If you build a good culture, they share the same core values that you do and the company does, and they're making their money, they will stay. If their expectations are not accurate and they don't make the money that you told them they could make, now all of a sudden they're struggling to pay their bills. They might love the company, but if they can't afford to stay there, they'll move on. And while they will have helped you move forward a little bit, you'll be taking a step back because now you have to hire another person to fill those same shoes. Every step along the way, as you hire, you should be learning and growing. The database should be growing, the systems should be growing, the processes should be growing. And as a founder, if you can't step out of those shoes, you just never can scale. You will never be able to scale.
That's good to know. And would you say that as a founder, when you find that, you find success with your first salesperson and, you have the accountability so that the culture stays in alignment, what does that scaling look like after that first success with the salesperson? Do you empower them with assistance, or do you find another one of those players?
So it depends. It depends on what stage in their career they're at. But in this instance, if they're relatively early stage in their career and they've got a lot of fire in their belly and they're really showing success, micro promotions are always something that are recommended. So promote them into a senior, whatever the title is, business development manager, and then a team lead, where they're responsible for building out the training manual and, all of the metrics required to be successful. You and they hire together their next person, and their job now is to learn how to hold that person accountable. So to do the job that they're doing and now hold that person accountable. Once you can scale that second person successfully, now you potentially could promote that person into a manager, an early stage manager role, where they hire a second person or a third person. And as long as they build and keep those metrics and they hold their team accountable and they continue to coach them up, you can continue to show greater scale. But you won't be able to do that as a founder unless you drop what you're doing and focus exclusively on the sales role, because it takes that much work. It's that much effort to figure it out. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So if that is not your expertise, you're going to have to take a shot at somebody to help you build that process.
Yeah, it's really interesting and learning so much, sitting here just kind of seeing how everything you're saying it explains a lot of the failures that we had in the early days of trying to even establish our own processes, and not just in sales, but even in other roles. And I'm sure you guys are working exclusively with salespeople, right? Across any industry. So you guys have seen sales in all these different industries. Would you say that you see a lot of similarities across industries when it comes to sales? Because sales is the backbone of any business. What are some of those things that you see across the industries that are like consistent with each other?
Well, it's definitely across industry, and it's more on the company and the sales type. Like some organizations are highly transactional, some are much more strategic in nature. And a person that's built around a transactional sales environment doesn't necessarily work well in a strategic sales environment, and vice versa. A person that is, they seem unbelievable, they're so talented, but they're strategic in nature, which means they have a long sales cycle and it's very, solutions oriented, may not survive in a smaller environment that is more transactional oriented. The average deal size is $15,000, and this person's used to selling $100,000 to $300,000 deals. It might not be a great fit for them because they're used to a longer sales cycle. So they can't keep up with the activity metrics, or they're not comfortable calling on maybe small business and a volume of small business. So while they sound really intelligent, and they are, and they present incredibly well, when they sit down at the desk, you realize that they've only reached out to, 15 people in a day. And you're trying to understand what went wrong, why aren't you getting the leads you wanted? Well, a lot of it would have to do with the 30, 60, 90-day plan. And if in their 30, 60, 90-day plan, the first 30 days they said on a daily basis they were going to reach out to 15 people, hopefully at the beginning you'd see that this is a red flag, probably not the right person for our organization. But if you have another person that's calling on a similar audience, but that is used to selling to small organizations in a transactional environment, and their 30, 60, 90-day plan is high activity, that meets your selling environment, that could be a really good person for you. I would need much more information, but that one key characteristic or that one sales characteristic would help understand and identify if that person would fit well in your environment. So we're trying to make all those matches, right? We're trying to figure it out. And the advantage to using us is we'll find those people that meet those requirements that fit your environment. That's the whole idea. We have access to talent, or if we don't have the access, we'll find them, we'll qualify them, interview them, make sure they're a good fit, make sure they're interested in the opportunity, understand the compensation structure. So when we line them up with you, there should be no glitches other than interviewing the candidates that we've introduced you to, building a pipeline, learning from each one of them, and figuring out who's the best fit.
When you guys are aligning sales talent with businesses, how much information do you typically require from the business that you're working for? What does that discovery process look like? Just so that if someone was listening and wanted to do that internal process to understand if they could even work with a company like you, what would that look like?
Yeah, so the first thing we would do is we'd want to understand, I can tell you exactly what it is. We'd want to know what the elevator pitch is. And that is, how do they sell their company? And that's critical because most people don't know how to sell the company. The first thing they say is, we've got the coolest technology in the world or whatever. But people want to know why you work there, or why did you start this company? Why is this company such a great place? Like, why should I work here? What are the reasons why this is such a interesting organization and a good fit for me, right? So it's understanding that elevator pitch and the reasons why a person would want to join the company. Because when we go to market and we're trying to recruit individuals that are happy in their current role, we want to make sure that we have a dynamic story to get them excited. If it's not a dynamic story that adds value to their career, we won't convert them. We won't be able to introduce them to you. So number one is, what is the elevator pitch? Why is this company so great? Number two is, what is the title of the role? What is the responsibility of the role? Good and bad. We want to be able to set accurate expectations about what's great about this opportunity and what's not so great. Maybe one of the things that's not so great is that you've hired 2 people in the past and they haven't been successful. And the reason why they haven't been successful is because there's no systematic approach to running sales. So we need a person that has a systematic approach to running sales. Do you, candidate A, have the ability to join a company that has failed in the last 2 hires, struggling to figure this out, and have a strategy to make them successful? Because if you don't, we're just going to be wasting everyone's time, right? So it's understanding what have you failed at, what are you good at, what are you bad at, So when we go to market, we can tell that story. For someone that understands and has a playbook, it's a wonderful opportunity. They can have impact immediately. Like someone knows what they're doing. They like this challenge because they can walk in the door and seem like a superstar within the first 2 weeks, right? It's like, oh man, this is great. Then it is average sales size, sales cycle, it's quota. What is the revenue? And if you don't know what their revenue looks like in the first year, you're really going to want to define that and maybe even define it with this person. But figure out what the revenue, what the target is, what the goal is. If there's no goals for the sales organization or the salesperson, maybe we haven't hired a salesperson. A good salesperson is going to want to know what their goals look like and what they're supposed to be running for. Then they're going to want to know what the comp structure looks like. What is the base salary and what is the variable? What is the percentage of comp commission they get on those on each and every deal? We're going to want to talk about what the interview process looks like. Do you have an interview process? Is it quick? Is it thorough? Do you have a job scorecard? What does that all look like so that you're prepared for us when we bring really strong candidates to you? You know exactly what you're doing and what the process looks like. We're going to ask you for a job description. And then lastly, we're going to basically kick off a search. We would ask you about competitors and industries you'd like to see people from. We would also like, if you have a sales team, we want to know what your top producer's background looks like. And if you don't have a sales team, that's okay. We're going to talk through some of those things and at least understand who your competition is and what some of those, what the competitor sales reps look like. Then we'll go to market. We'll look for competitors. We'll look for industries that are similar, depending on, again, the requirement. And we'll look to serve up candidates that meet that requirement, that are interested in the opportunity, and that are fully educated on what this entails, what this role looks like, what they should expect. We put them in front of you, usually 6 to 10 candidates is what it takes to identify the right candidate. Usually there's 2 people that you really love. You go with the first one, try to lock them down. If you can't get them, you go after the second one, but hopefully you have a couple to consider. And then within 30 days, you've made your hire and that person's ready to go and you're off to the races.
When you're working with smaller organizations that don't have the playbook already, if their founder doesn't know what to look for, they might not even know what that job description should be because they don't know what type of salespeople are out there, right? There's a variety. You mentioned transactional, you mentioned strategic. So in the case of a business that has both a need for both transactional and strategic, maybe it's the way that their business model is built with like an Ascension. How do you work with something like that?
So the first thing I would do is I'd figure out what we want to do is what is the percentage of strategic deals over transactional deals, right? And then 2 is what can you afford? Mm-hmm. If you are a small company and there's some risk here and it's hiring another person is nerve-wracking and expensive, so you have a low budget, then you'd go after the transactional person. And what you would do is you'd create some structure around any deal that is over whatever you consider, strategic. Any deal over $30,000, get the president involved right away. And then the president or the CEO, the founder, they are part of the large enterprise deals, but the machine is still running to bring in a flurry of, a pipeline top of the funnel all the way down of options and opportunities for your team to be considering. And the more options you have, the better off you are to scale and grow your company.
Yeah, that's really good information and insight because that's something that we see at our type of business at our size. We see oftentimes a flow of transactional deals and then all of a sudden you'll get like a big fish, or as we'll call it. And then that's definitely something that is way more strategic. It's a long-term play, multi-year relationship and stuff like that. So that's really good insight. Is there anything else that you could recommend to that model in terms of how to scale off that model?
It's really a transactional model that has, big deals that are sprinkled in, right? So in order to find those big deals, you need the transactions. You bring in the founder when you have the big deals because you need to, right? That's what happens. The ultimate is scale the transactional environment because that's what it is. And once you get momentum, then you'll build enough strategic and enterprise deals that you can either coach the first or, one of the individuals that you have on your team, coach them up and promote them. Like I said, it can be a micro promotion or a full promotion. Or you start looking outside of the industry and realizing, all right, we're gaining momentum, we're growing, we're scaling quickly, we're seeing revenue grow, we're seeing profit grow, and now it's time we need help now with these enterprise opportunities because as the founder, once again, I'm overwhelmed with enterprise or big deals and I no longer can work on the company. I'm back stuck working in the company. And so that is an early indicator that you probably need someone in that role. But you don't want to do it too quickly, because an enterprise person in a transactional environment, it's not going to get a lot. It's going to sound great. They're going to be able to talk the talk. They're going to understand the technology. But that all of those things are great, but they can't prospect for new business. And so, what's the use? If they can't bring in, if they can't build pipeline, it's no good for them to close the big deals. You can handle 1 or 2 deals a month or a quarter or what have you.
When you first got into the industry to where we're at now, have you seen the models of sales teams change? Have you seen more transactional sales organizations in the past, or are they more common now? What have you seen since you guys started your company?
So pre-COVID, tech is, we had big field-based outside enterprise AE organizations. When COVID hit, a lot of the model changed to a heavy BDR, so business development rep, or SDR, sales development rep, whereas high college grads, high prospecting, high outreach, and there's a million tools out there to be able to reach a large audience. Then it turned to more authentic communication and more one-to-one outreach, which is where we are now, right? So we came out of COVID, that high activity, huge BDR teams, and they've now actually shrunk, and it's more around authentic, real outreach, human contact, some kind of connection to really, make an introduction and get a conversation started.
Yeah, that's interesting how I saw that. I had a lot of friends in college who went out and did these massive sales teams, and it seems like their roles have changed. One of the things that I've seen change too, and it's something I wanted to talk to you about here on this podcast specifically for creators, is that it seems like a lot of businesses are working on turning their employees and their teams into content creators in their business. And I see a lot of salespeople now making content as part of their role in organizations. And so have you seen any shift towards that with people or companies that you guys are working for? Have you ever had a company say, hey, we want to recruit a salesperson who also has content creation skills because we see the value of creating content as a salesperson?
Not yet, but you are accurate. It is 100% accurate. The way companies sell now is your ability to create content, right? And by the way, content could be video, it could be writing, there's a million different ways to create content. But yeah, your ability to create content is critically important. We don't have companies asking for that right now. They ask more around process. But as part of that, these people that you do consider and hire will understand how to build content. It is just part of the job.
That's something that we're really leaning heavily into with our agency in some of our current clients. And as times are changing with technology, the AI stuff really coming into play, we're looking at serving businesses instead of, hey, we'll come in and do the content creation for you. Hey, we'll come in, bring you the resources to turn your current teams into content creators. And we see that that's going to be the future. And aside from the conversation we're having here, there's data to back that up. We see these large organizations investing heavy into their current teams. So I'm curious to see the landscape and how it's going to change.
By the way, I think you guys are onto something dead on.
I appreciate that. I'd love to hear more about, what you see too over the next year in terms of businesses, if they're making that transition or if they start requesting that, because the AI, the technology advancements are happening super quickly, but you're always going to need salespeople. The future vision that I see is a salesperson who's really good. They have great product service knowledge, but they're also really good at creating content where they are going to become so valuable to organizations, and they're going to build these massive pipelines and also be able to close deals. And I'm really excited to see what comes of it.
That's the idea, right? When you're interviewing these individuals, if content's important for you, then we should be recruiting salespeople that have heavy content in their background. But the idea is they have a playbook of how this works and what they found to be successful in their past opportunities. For a lot of small companies, they basically, maybe they post a job or maybe they get a referral and they hire to hire, but they never get any really quality candidates. So they basically hire the best of the worst and think it's got to be a solution, but then it fails and like, oh my God, salespeople stink. I just can't hire salespeople. It doesn't work. It's not that. You've probably given up too early and you haven't really invested in the right resources to get you the right talent to grow your organization.
Well, where do you see the future of your guys' industry in the next coming years?
What's happening now is there's more access to information than ever before, right? So, everyone can look and find and search on, individuals. But those individuals are, they're heavily messaged to. And so the real question is, how do you convert them? How do you gain their interest? If they're a top producer in their current company, why are they connecting with you? In our instance, we've been around for 26 years. We have a lot of relationships. We have a lot of referrals. We have a humongous network. And we're trying to add value to each one of these individuals so that we can advance their career. Finding the right opportunity for them is just as difficult as it is for companies to find the right person to fill their role. And so we're that matchmaker. We just happen to ask all the right questions for both the company and the candidate to make sure we find a right match. But what makes this so hard is there's so much white noise, right? There's so much noise. There's so much data. There's so many people. And in sales recruiting, you never know who the good ones are until you talk to them. So I can look at resumes all day long, but first of all, not all of them are going to want to talk to me. And then secondly, when I do talk to many of these individuals, they might not be that great. They might not be a good fit. They might not fit the environment that I'm trying to fill, or the comp might be off. The territory might be wrong. There's a million different variables. So what we're seeing is while there's more access to people or content, it is much more challenging to connect with and speak with or have, real conversations with individuals that are trying to advance their careers because there's so much noise. And so that's where we add so much value, right? You can go online, you can find these people, but you have to spend the time to convert them, build a relationship with them, become a trusted advisor to help them advance their career both professionally as well as financially.
Yeah, I think that in the early days, we were like, oh, we could just go find people ourselves. And then I learned very quickly, it's not easy to find people. It's easy to find people, but it's really hard to find the right people. I think that's one of the hardest things in scaling is finding the right people because, we can go do a LinkedIn post, LinkedIn, or go look around, and it's, as a founder who's involved, it is so hard. So
it's such a waste of time.
Yeah.
200 resumes, then, connecting with all 200, letting them know that they are a good fit or not a good fit, talking to them to find out that it's not what they thought, people blowing you off, all that. There's a million things that happen to find the really good ones that also meet the criteria. You can't believe how much work goes into just one search for us.
I agree. And oftentimes I think founders don't even know what they're looking for. And I think that's a big piece that experts like yourself can bring into the equation because there's a reason you're an expert in your field. They know what to look for and they know how to bring people who are going to add value to your organization. We failed so many times, not just in like biz dev roles, but even in project management, editing, production. It's across all departments. So definitely use someone who can find placement because I'll tell you the struggles. Well, I appreciate your time. I'd love to connect outside of this as well and chat more, but where can people find you online, social media? Tell us where people can find you.
One of the easiest places is on LinkedIn. Just go to Dan Fantasia, connect with me, send me a message. It's totally cool. You can go to our website, which is Treeline Inc. That's INC. So treelineinc.com. Click on a contact us form or you want a free consultation. Plug your email address in there. We'll reach right back out to you and we're happy to talk about your business and what you're doing. And then if you want to go to our resources page, there is a template for job descriptions. So if you are looking to hire and you need some free resources and you want to do it on your own, feel free to visit the website and use whatever you can to your advantage.
Awesome. Well, check out Dan and connect with him. He's a wealth of knowledge. Just on this podcast alone, I've learned a ton. And if you're a creator, go through his free resources. I went through some of the free resources, checked out some of the other podcasts that you've been on. So thanks for hopping on the Scaling Creator podcast.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, sir. And I appreciate it.